Hello and welcome to the 29.5 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Tonight's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. We are also brought to you by Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level of our game. See pitchlogic.com for more information. As always, I am joined by three right-handers that really put it out there this weekend, just made quality starts. Zebby Barrels, Aaron J. Fitt, who bled for the cause. Healy and Kendall, the country club member of the, just indoors in a suite, TV
perfect
time.
Elements.
Dude, come on, KR.
I feel like Aaron's like putting in his hard time for what's to come this weekend.
That's right.
That's true.
He's earning his stars and stripes.
I get to be pampered this weekend over there at Globe Life. But this past weekend, and I'll say this: we had I love going to Coastal. It's a great ballpark. But we had the windows open, and it was darn cold on Sunday, and it was just dry. My knuckles are angry with me. My knuckles are very, very cracked.
No bueno. So you're gonna have to play hurt at Globe Life, Fitzy. Good thing that's what do they call it? Controlled environment there.
That's right.
I find I suffer from I have a hand condition that makes my hands really cold really easily. Shout out to those of you out here listening who also suffer from Raynaud syndrome. And so my knuckles are always cracked and stuff in the wintertime. And so there'll be times you look at my hands and I've just got so much liquid bandage on my hands to keep the wounds clean and closed that it looks like I dip my hands in wax or something, but it works. Stuff works. It burns, but it's good.
America is really engaged in this podcast right now.
This is good stuff.
I have no skin cracking to discuss. Me and Runes have this problem.
Yeah.
Joe,
but I have no skin cracking yet.
That's where the bucket.
I'll let you guys know next week if my skin starts cracking.
Yes, I'll wrap us with this, KR. The D1, the newly unveiled D1Baseball vest was clutch cargo this week for Coach Rooney. Yes, I was flying the colors.
Aaron, did you pull out the vest in the cold weather, bud?
I got to tell you again. Okay. Here's the thing: it's like the vest fever. It just boggles my mind because it's like they have these things that are like vests, but they have sleeves, so they also keep your arms warm.
But your arm is loose.
I think they're called jackets. It's a weird. Look into it. What do you need loose arms for? I don't understand. I don't
never
understand.
know. You might have to throw some punches or something like that.
Fitzy's ancestors.
You know what? If you had guns to show off, maybe you would wear a vest.
No, there's that. That's right. The pythons. Oh, that's great.
Kendall's walking around like George Costanza with a giant Gore-Tex jacket. Well, no wonder you can't move your arms. I don't understand.
I'm just going to call myself the Billy Amick. I'm just going to call myself the Billy Amick of college baseball media.
Well said. Although the George Costanza drop, that's the mic drop of this podcast. Well played, Fitzy.
I'm out. See you guys.
Yes.
Later, man.
All right, boys, let's do this. We're Monday evenings. We want to do quick thoughts. Hence the 29.5 minute shot clock for us. Here's what I thought we could do. Let's talk about. I want each of us to mention one player that just in the course. You don't even have to. My player is not someone I saw. It was just like we're processing all these box scores and results. It was just a player's name that came across my face that I was like, dang, like that. That's interesting. So just one player that really jumped out at you, and then like a big observation from what you saw with your own eyes this week. So I'll give you the player, Ryan Prager for A&M, dealt. And I remember reading about him a couple years ago, and Kendall, I'm going to have you fact check me on this. I remember reading about him a couple years ago and people saying hey, this could be like a real Friday night dude, 6'3", left-hander with command and velo. And then, he made 16 starts and went fine. And then last year didn't pitch at all. And he shoved this weekend. And I had mentally kind of checked out on him. If he's a real dude, my perception of A&M is completely turned inside out. Is he a real dude, Kendall, Joe? What say you?
I saw him a couple years ago as a freshman. When I saw him back then, it was 90, 92, really good pitch abilities, got a good frame. What's really interesting about A&M, and granted, like I'm not trying to disrespect McNeese here, but I mean they were picked in the middle to bottom half of the Southland Conference this year. But the point remains that A&M's pitching staff, which was an issue last year, they finished, I think it was 100. Joe can correct me on this. I think it was 113th or 114th in ERA last year as a team. Opening weekend, they allowed 1 run. That's the least amount of runs an A&M staff has allowed since 1918 in a weekend. 1918. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I'll give you another one just to piggyback on that. I saw this hashtag Pat stat this weekend. North Carolina scored more runs in their opening weekend than they have since the 1898 Tar Heels did an opening weekend. So they got you trumped there, Raj.
Those 1898 Tar Heels were tough.
They're loaded, dude.
So,
they're loaded.
Yeah. I didn't know we were supposed to bring stats from 2 centuries ago, Joe.
Yeah, the balls are very juiced back then. I didn't
get the email on the 100-year-old statistics that we were supposed to bring. Joe, save us.
I should have used better parlance there, as the kids are saying. Like the 1898 Tar Heels were a problem. That's what the kids are saying.
Meanwhile, weren't Texas Tech and Florida State founded in like the early 60s or late 50s?
Where I live was not a state at this time, so I think these stats are all moot.
Yeah, Florida State famously was what, an all women's university up until
yeah, it's a teachers college. Texas State was the same way. Southwest Texas State was originally, I believe, a teachers college.
So let's do this. So Prager was interesting to me. Joe, you can either comment on Prager or take us to the next player, please.
I'll take you to the next player because because Prager didn't throw last year, I didn't actually see a lot of him. So Kendall's, I knew who he was. I saw him in Omaha, I guess, but Kendall's evaluation there is going to be a lot more valuable than mine. I will stick in the SEC. Slate Alford hit 3 home runs for Georgia and went like 8 for 14 or some such. I don't have the number here right in front of me, but actually, yes, I do. Yeah. I still have Georgia's stats open. 6 for 14, 3 home runs, 9 driven in. It's UNC Asheville. I get it. We're going to have to put caveats on all these players we talk about probably. Mm-hmm. However, it's not like he also didn't see some cupcake pitching when he played at Mississippi State, and he didn't get off to starts like this always, right? And if Georgia, look, I don't know what to make of that team. If they're going to even sniff the idea of being a surprise regional club this year, they're going to need the offense to be somebody more than just Charlie Condon. By the way, Charlie Condon hit a ball apparently that had like a 118 exit velo over the weekend. Like the dude is bonkers, but he might draw 75 walks this year because why would you ever let that guy beat you in that lineup?
Yeah,
but
well said.
Regardless, look, we've never doubted Slate Alford's talent. Like that's never been on the table for debate. It's just been reaching the ceiling. Maybe some defensive questions, things like that. But Georgia, to be the best version of themselves, is going to need him, and you'd rather him do what he did this weekend than not, even against bad competition. So I found that kind of interesting because I just truly don't know what to expect with that team.
Fair. Fitz, you got a player?
Can I give you a player and a pitcher from baseball to beach, or do I have to pick one?
No,
using the KR rule, taking one and turning it into 2. Yeah. I like it.
Well, I wrote about Charlie Bielenson today on the site, and I've talked about him a lot on the pod, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just want to say this. It's a neat story. He's a 6-year senior who might end up being the best reliever in the country. Does it remind you of anyone? Kevin Kopps, perhaps? I'm not saying he's going to win the Golden Spikes Award now, but it's the coolest, out of nowhere 6-year senior. He was already a guy as a 5th-year senior last year, but the fact that they had those 2 COVID years in the Ivy League, right? 2020 was canceled, and then they had all 2021 canceled. This guy had a 13 ERA as a freshman, a 10 ERA as a sophomore. Solid, finally when he got to pitch 2 years later, but nothing special. And then he goes to Duke as a walk-on, and he, it's like everyday Eddie, 39 appearances last year, very good, change-up specialist. And now he's taking yet another step. And they have 2 preseason All-Americans in their bullpen, and this guy is the best of the bunch. He's better right now anyway than O'Shell and Talon. He's got that premium changeup. He'll throw righties, lefties, whatever. Slider's gotten better and better and better. It's a real out pitch now. He's got this cutter that he'll run in on lefties, and he's up to 94, and missing more bats with the fastball. And he's just a dude. He's rubber armed. He's super resilient. He's Kevin Kopps-ish is what he is. And I just thought that struck me today is that kind of the Kopps parallel. And I just wanted to mention that. And then real quick, the other thing from baseball to beach, the other guy that I have to talk about is David Seifert's man. Sam Antonacci. Seifert was all over this guy in JUCO ball. He juiced him pretty good in our JUCO rankings. I had never seen him before. Joe, I know you saw him in the fall. But I loved what I saw from this guy. It's just like, so he's thicker than I expected. I knew he was super athletic, but it's thick in like a way that like Mike Trout is thick, where it's just like, Runes, you use the term sometimes heavy-legged. This guy's the opposite of heavy-legged, whatever that is. I think you say light-legged, but like he's like super, super light on his feet. And you can see it on, when he's running down the line, you can see it on the base pass. You can see it at third base. It's just like he's physical, but he's explosive, like a powerful running back or something. And he's got such a quiet approach in the box from the left side, feel for the barrel. He drives it. He can hit velocity, as a tough out, highlight reel defender. I just think this guy's going to play in the big leagues for 15 years. And right now, I think he's got a chance to be a first round pick. And if he doesn't be a first round pick, somebody's going to get a steal because he's going to play for a long time.
Gosh, I can't wait to see him. That's awesome. Well,
you heard it here first. Charlie Bielenson is Kevin Kopps and Sam Antonacci is Mike Trout. That's what Aaron.
There it is. That's basically what I just said. Yeah.
Fitzy, let it rip. We don't want to be shy. I like that.
And Connor Davis is Frank Thomas. Is that who it was?
Oh, Connor Davis with one R,
great
with one
pull.
N. Yeah, great
pull.
Do you know, I told you guys that the ASU guys started calling him the Big Hurt on their text threads, which was amazing.
So good.
Yes, I love
the Frank
that.
Thomas comp was one of the best.
Yes, yeah, big physical guys that take walks.
If he hadn't been injured, he would have lived up to that.
He had a nice career, but he great kid too. If you ever talk to him, Connor Davis, all time. He might get into coaching. I hope he does. He's awesome. And I was pleased to give him a nickname that was that was very much a stretch. Kendall, give us the next Frank Thomas. Do you have a Randy Johnson comp?
This guy might be closer to Frank Thomas and Connor Davis, but I'll give you, since Fitt gave you two guys, I'll give you two guys real quick. Billy Amick for Tennessee would be one of them for me. Obviously one of the more heralded transfers during the offseason. Obviously, we knew he had great power. He was red hot in the last year for Clemson. But one of the big question marks with Billy was his ability to play third base. And it was really interesting. Obviously, he had a great weekend power-wise. He hit a ball like halfway up the second deck at Globe Life, which is pretty impressive. But the thing that stood out to me was A, just the physicality of his frame, and B, his defensive skills. Like, tell you what, if you're expecting Billy Amick to go out there and be a Gold Glove third baseman, that's not what you're going to see. But he went out there. He was a steady defender. He didn't do anything that, put it this way, he didn't do anything like Jacob Berry did when he was a third baseman at LSU, where you're like, oh, what the hell is he doing? Like there were no moments like that with Billy this past weekend. He was very steady over there, which is really good to see. And frankly, if he is that all year long defensively, and he continues to hit throughout the year the way he looked at times over the weekend, we had him 40th in our prospect rankings. He will be 40th. He'll be like 15 or 20 if that continues. And I know Seif was really hitting me up over the weekend, just asking me what I thought about his defensive skill set. So he was one guy. I think the other guy, real quick for me, we talked a lot, guys, in our preseason pod about the Ryan Farber kid at Texas State, who hit like 530 in the fall. You guys know as well as I do. How many times do we hear, hey, this guy was really good in the fall, and he does absolutely nothing in the spring? Farber, over the weekend, guys, hit like 639 in his debut for the Bobcats. So that is a case of, it looks like he's as good as he was in the fall.
I love it. Isn't that cool? Like, Billy Amick was like not playing the first part of the season for Clemson last year. Like, we're at a point in time where kids just they get opportunities, they make quick jumps. It's really, I love that. Hey,
I'll say this too, real quick on Billy. And there's people out there that will have a little bit more background in this whole situation than I will. But it's hard to look at Billy Amick unless he's as greatly improved. It is hard for me to look at Billy Amick in third base and go, oh yeah, Eric Backett totally would not give him a shot at third base. Like, there's like, just knowing EB, like there's no way he saw that and went, yeah, there's no way he can play there.
Well, he sent him to the Cape and ask them, hey, can you help this guy? He wants to play third base. Like, we want him to be our third baseman. Can you help make him our third baseman?
Yeah.
And then he just kind of got, he got out recruited on his own player.
Yeah, I mean, but the narrative even after the fact was that Clemson told him he can't play third for him. I mean, that was the narrative even after all of that.
Right, and that's
I'm just saying
that's a false narrative. Is exactly right. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new narrative in the transfer era, right? That it doesn't matter. We don't care. Like, we're not holding transferring against kids. Like, it's great.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, people are saying that Chase Burns wasn't had no shot at being a weekend starter for Tennessee, which we obviously know is not the truth.
Yeah. I think we'd all prefer that the people around the player just say, hey, we thought it was a better opportunity. We thought it was a better fit, and let's just move on, right? It's like, who cares? Why?
Yeah, he seemed like a really humble kid, by the way. Like, I talked to him after the game on the days run together. I think it was Friday. Really laid back dude. Like, so I was a big fan.
Yep. Hey, let's do an observation from what we saw, and then if others care to comment on it, that's great, and or follow-up questions, more importantly. I'll start. I'm going to be quick. I'm going to try to give you one thought on some of the teams. There was a billion teams out here, and it made it really fun. Grand Canyon needs to be filed away. Like, they lost the star power. I mean, this is a team that had a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a fifth-round pick last year. And they've got a star on the mound in Danny Avidia. They've got a star position player in Zach York. They've got a bunch of seniors. They've got a star freshman in Connor Madison. Grand Canyon's a program that's going to have to work really hard to hang on to Connor Madison. This is up to 93 with a nasty, nasty changeup. They just looked really good all weekend. They beat USC and looked like a far superior team. Grand Canyon was very impressive. USC just looked disheveled. Like, they have no field, they have no cages. USC looked lost. Like, they just look like it's been a lot. And I love that coaching staff, and there are good players on there. And Austin Overn had a really tough weekend. It's hard for me to picture them being good when Austin Overn is struggling. And so Arizona was very impressive. We had them as the 9th-ranked Pac-12 team. The coaches had them in the 9th-ranked Pac-12 team. That already looks erroneous. It's interesting. They have less star power than last year, but you can see Chip Hale is really, really solid baseball coach, and Kevin Vance's influence on those pitchers, they were so much better on the mound, like strike throwing. And I get it. Like, all those kids are a year older, so that, you would hope that they would be a year better. And I just felt like they outplayed Northeastern. I think Northeastern still has great ceiling. Mike Glavin's team, they just played poorly. They walked people. They didn't play great defense. They are big and athletic and fast, and they play like they're confident. Northeastern this is, but Arizona was just better than them this weekend. So I have not lost heart on Northeastern. Arizona was really the story there. They were very impressive. And I'll just wrap with this, and you guys can comment on this. Oregon State was excellent. Their position player group is old and good. Bazana is a star. He went off. Trent Caraway is a really dynamic offensive player as well. The only thing, the nitpick I have on Oregon State, man, I wish they had more out pitches. It's a very solid pitching staff. I wish they had a few more out pitches. And the other team, ASU, was kind of both sides. Like, we thought they had a great offense. They did. We were concerned about their pitching. It was Santa Clara's veteran team beat up ASU's pitching. So any follow-up questions, boys, or thoughts on all that? I know that's a lot of we had a lot of teams out here. Holy heck.
Yeah. So obviously, Northeastern, I think you made a good point. Like, they didn't have a great weekend. For me, I just think, like, again, I think back to like the 2011 UConn team. I think I made this point in the chat today, but like, that team was a top 10 team in the preseason, had a lot of hype that they kind of had to justify because everyone doubts the Northeast teams. I get it. And they came out of the chute kind of shaky, not great. On those warm weather swings. And then at the end of the year, they won a regional at Clemson, and they gave South Carolina a good test in the Super. And like, that team had Springer and Barnes, and like, they were super talented. and you could write them off when they struggle early, like all Northeast teams seem to do every year. But Northeastern's loaded, and they're going to be there at the end. And I just have, it seems like you share my conviction that they're still, and the collar, and you were there for the collar and look. And that was one thing I wanted to ask you about.
Up to 99 from sidearm, right? It was like, the thing is, Arizona played they look like a West Coast team, right? They didn't walk anybody. They made every play. They didn't play for offense. The kid they played at third base, Richie Morales, is a JUCO shortstop. And so they just punted offense at third base. And of course he had 3 hits. But Arizona was off speed for a strike. Mike Sirota looks the part. I know you guys have seen him. They pitched him really tough. And so it was interesting. Fun weekend out here. It was like, man, it was like my brain is fried right now. It was like so many different teams. I didn't even see Cal in Kansas State. I'll see Cal in a couple weeks at the peak events thing in Vegas. But it was fun. It's just a lot to process. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump in here. Mine is less of an observation of something specific I saw, but I thought opening weekend in the SEC was a good reminder of it doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter what ranking number you have next to your name. Like, you're just going to got, right? When you look at Arkansas lost a game to James Madison, Mississippi State lost one to Air Force, LSU had a close shave with VMI, Florida lost to St. John's. And this is nothing new, of course, but I do think it's a good reminder year over year. And I'm glad we got it out of the way on like opening night to just be like, yeah, this stuff isn't easy just because your team is good. Like, things go wrong on the micro level. For example, and they won this game, but Hagen Smith throws 42 pitches in the first inning and doesn't come out for the second inning. Vanderbilt won their first game against FAU, but Grayson Carter walked 7 dudes in 3 innings. And then Carter Holton got hit around a little bit in his relief outing. So unless you're convinced those things are just static and are going to stay true, and some of them might, that's just the way baseball works. Things happen every year we don't expect. But for the most part, those things aren't going to stay the same forever. The teams will bounce back. Things will mostly be fine. But like, I think there's just always an expectation of, teams just working through things like a warm knife through butter. And just because the team you're playing doesn't have the level of talent you do, that it's going to be this sort of easy experience. And that's just not the case. So,
Joe, I have a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I like, of all those things, I agree. I think your point is really well taken. Like, good baseball still matters. It doesn't matter the hype or the ranking, to your point. What do you think, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think Vandy's conviction level will be on Grayson Carter? Because like, they were kind of on an island with the whole, hey, like, we can make him a starter. We can make him a starter. He doesn't look like a starter. It just, he looks like a reliever you're going to hold your breath with, let alone a starter. And then he walks 7. What do you what's your gut tell you on their conviction level there?
My gut tells me that they liked what they saw enough in the fall. And I saw it with my own eyes. I saw him against Wake Forest. He threw strikes. But I think they saw enough in the fall. And at this point, they've kind of put enough effort into trying to make him a starter that I think they're going to ride this out for a few more weeks. If you make me choose, though, I have a hard time believing by the time we get to the business end of SEC play that he's going to be in a starter's role. It's too big of an arm, too good of an arm to just completely shelve him. And I'm not saying they would even consider that, but you have to find a role for him, I think. But I have a hard time. I get the feeling that they're like, hey, let's see this out a few more weeks. Let's not pull the plug yet. And most of their games until SEC play are going to be manageable. But I don't think they're going to die on this hill necessarily, because they just have too many other options, right? I mean, they're just it's such an embarrassment of riches in terms of guys who could plausibly start for them that there's no reason to be stubborn about it.
Do we have a feel for Carter Holton's current status? Obviously, he did not pitch well came out of the bullpen. Like, what's up with him?
Yeah, if you take things at face value, healthy, but got a late start to getting stretched out and getting ramped up. So they brought him out of the bullpen, and maybe he doesn't look as sharp just because he hasn't thrown as much as the other guys in the lead up to the season. The idea was always for him to be in the rotation. So if you start to do easy math, okay, you're going to keep Futrell in the rotation, and so Holton will take up one of those other spots. And so when you have the discussion about Grayson Carter versus points to any of the other Vanderbilt pitchers in the roster, like there really aren't that many opportunities to go around. So that's the other thing working against it. If they had drafted or graduated their entire weekend rotation, maybe they'd be a little more stubborn with someone like Grayson Carter, but they don't have to. And so Holton will be back in the rotation at some point sooner rather than later. They just wanted to take it slow with him.
Makes sense.
Hey, Kendall, why don't you give us a synopsis on Globe Life? You're muted.
I'll tell you what, I'll start with, since I talked about Tennessee a minute ago, I'll start with OU. OU is my non-top 25 sleeper. I feel really good about this team. I think the biggest thing for me when I look at Oklahoma over the weekend is when you look at the guys that got big hits for them, it was veterans. It was John Spikerman. John Spikerman had 2 huge hits for OU. I was talking to Skip after the game on Saturday about the fact that we all kind of had him as our breakout player last year. And, it wasn't a horrible season. I mean, he hit 275, and I think it was like three homers and like 40 RBI. So, I mean, it's not like he had some god-awful campaign, but it wasn't the kind of season we expected out of him. So to see him come out there and get some big hits for them early in the season, I thought was really big. I think the most exciting thing about this Oklahoma team, guys, is their pitching depth. I mean, if you look back at last year, their staff ERA was not great. Without Cade Horton and David Sandlin, it just wasn't very good. Over the weekend, Brendan Gurton pitched really well. It was up to 94, 95. I've seen him up to 98. I think he can kind of harness his stuff a little bit better when he kind of backs off that velo a little bit. He looked really good over the weekend. Braden Davis, looks solid as well for the Sooners. He was a highly touted guy. Just a low 90s lefty who's going to pound the zone. Then the Witherspoon brothers, I thought just showed tremendous upside. Both of them, up to 96, 97. I want to say Kyson might have touched 98. I'm a big fan of Kyson. I just think when you look at his stuff, he's hard-nosed, he's loud, he's boisterous. And I love his overall stuff and mentality. So you factor all those guys in the equation, Ryan Lambert. I thought it was really interesting about Ryan Lambert. I think Fitt might have seen him in the fall, but they told me like he can touch 99 and 100. And what's really interesting about him is he threw all sliders in like one. I think he threw like one cutter, and that was it. He did not throw a fastball at all. So the fact that they are kind of having him work on that secondary stuff early on tells me they feel like they have a pretty good one if he can start landing the secondary pitches or strikes, which he did over the weekend. So again, Oklahoma, depth on the mound, high quality depth. The offense looked pretty good. And then, Tennessee, for me, they're going to be really good. I mean, they looked the part in uniform. They're physical. They hit with power. But the thing for me that I like the most about Tennessee was if you look at, the pitching on the front end, AJ Russell was phenomenal. You guys are going to love this dude. I mean, it was 96, 97. The fastball was rising. He was going left, right, up, down. He was commanding it very well. I thought he looked terrific. AJ Causey, the Jacksonville straight transfer, was really good. Good velocity, good movement on his pitches. I think the only thing for me when I look at Tennessee is, and I think we'd all agree here, I'm not sure Xander Sechrist is a weekend starter for these guys in the SEC. I just think when you look at some of these other options, even Aaron Combs was really good out of the bullpen. So Tennessee has a lot of options, and I like their club. Real quick, Texas Tech. One of the things I talked about with those guys coming into the season, I thought they had more bullpen depth than in the past. That remains. I think when you look at the job that Josh Sanders did out of the bullpen. They really picked up Zane Petty on Friday with the 2 freshmen. Matt Hewer kind of leading the way. I think he went 3 1/3 for the Red Raiders. So more pitching depth for Texas Tech, and then the other teams there. Oregon. I like Oregon's bullpen. They had a couple of relievers of big time velo. Brock Moore was up to 99 for the Ducks. And then Nebraska. Lastly, real quick, Nebraska. They're a club for me that has a chance to be pretty good. I mean, Josh Overbeek and that lineup is a physical presence. You look at Dylan Carey, he's a really nice bat in the middle of that lineup. And then they had quite a bit of pitching depth. Keep an eye on Ty Horn, a freshman righty for them. He was up to 94 I want to say he touched a 95. Again, hard-nosed approach, really attacks hitters. And so I thought Nebraska showed a lot of potential. I know they went 1-2 over the weekend, but I mean, they could have very easily gone 2-1. They had Oklahoma on the ropes throughout, but give OU credit for coming back. But overall, feel pretty good about Tennessee and OU and obviously Texas Tech as well.
I agree with your sentiment about Tennessee's rotation, and I thought their usage of Causey and Nate Snead on Sunday was a little bit telling. I would bet one of those two guys is ultimately the third option at some point as we get into SEC play. So that's kind of where I come down on
that's a great point on Nate Snead because, guys, if you remember, Joe, like early in his outing, I mean, it was 98 to 100, but the command wasn't great. But the fact that he kind of settled in told me a lot about him. And you're right. I mean, if he can settle in and throw like that, I mean, you're right. There's no doubt he can be a weekend starter for them.
The thing I was going to say about Oklahoma too is my concern there is, are they going to be physical enough to make things happen offensively? Because I'm in kind of increasingly, and I don't want to be an extremist about this, but I'm just kind of increasingly dubious of teams that can't get bailed out by 3-run home runs. I'm not saying living by that is not the way to go either, but you kind of have to have that in your toolbox. And I'm not real. I mean, Bryce Madron's a good bat. I'm sure they have some guys with some pop there, but I just kind of went away watching them, and it's like, it's a lot of nice hitters who can run. And that's just a hard way to live, though, trying to put together 3 or 4 hits in a row to score 2 or 3 runs. Like that's just tough. And your margins are really, really thin, and maybe they can pitch enough to make that okay. But it does strike me that it feels like the Sooners are going to be working on really thin margins that way.
It's going to be interesting. My trip to Vegas in a couple weeks with OU, Ohio State, who I'm going to hold judgment, but I will tell you, I saw them this weekend. They have 8 left-handed hitters and really looked the part. And Cal looked good this weekend. So very interesting. Fitzy, what say you about you did some good writing on your event this week.
Yeah, and I'll keep it tight because I wrote about a lot of my thoughts here. But my takeaways are basically this. I walked into the weekend. Obviously, we were really high on Duke. We had them ranked number 12 in the country. We put them on top of that kind of pack of ACC teams with NC State, UVA, and UNC that we kind of debated because we believed in the pitching. We didn't put them ahead of Clemson or in the top 10 because we needed to see the lineup. And I saw what I wanted to see. You know, the lineup, they just keep hitting on these guys. They just keep hitting on their transfers. It's really remarkable the job they do evaluating these guys, like, you know, Zach Morris from VMI and Ben Miller from Penn and Logan Bravo from Harvard and, you know, Wallace Clark from Oklahoma. But like, especially those like kind of mid-major type guys and the Ivy League guys that they bring in, they just do an awesome job with those dudes. It's really impressive. And I think their lineups is perfectly cromulent. I mean, really, it's like they did a nice job and of course the freshmen are stars. I love Kyle Johnson. I've talked about that a lot. Love what I saw from Macon Winslow. He's actually very athletic as a freshman catcher with, I think, I got a chance to be a big star. So anyway, Duke answered the question I had, which was the lineup. And then Indiana and Coastal, we knew we loved their lineups. That's why we ranked Coastal. That's why we almost ranked Indiana and now since have ranked them. But we wanted to see the pitching, you know, like what do they got on the mound? And I walked away thinking, you know what, they're both in pretty good shape. They're both in pretty good shape on the mound. It's not, I think, an elite pitching staff in either case, but like there's some big arms, there's pitchability, there's depth and variety. So all three of those teams, I would say, answered the questions that I had about them in a satisfactory way. Duke, of course, most resoundingly, and Duke look like a team that, you know, will challenge Wake Forest, and for my money will probably be the number 2 team in the ACC, even ahead of Clemson. That was kind of the biggest takeaway was like, wow, Duke's really good. But the second biggest takeaway was Coastal and Indiana both look legit to me. I know Coastal had a 1-2 weekend. They're going to hit. They didn't hit this weekend, really, except for Friday when they put 26 runs on George Mason. But you know, their offense is going to be elite. And I liked what I saw from Meckley and at the top and actually the guy who threw on Friday, 6 no-hit innings. Help me out, Joe, the veteran. My mind is blanking.
Eichhoff.
Thank you, Riley Eichhoff. six hitless innings on Friday. So I mean, they got enough pieces. They got bullpen, but so those are my takeaways. George Mason had a bad weekend, and I'll withhold judgment. I do like their athleticism. A couple arms they threw the first 2 games got just jumped, and they're good arms. Chad Gartland's good arm. The lefty that they threw on Saturdays got good stuff, and they just both got jumped, and then it just snowballed. So I don't put too much stock into it. They should be a factor in the A10 with some of their position player guys, but they had a bad weekend, and so that just happens sometimes.
Fitzy, our faithful listener Jake Mintz would be mad at me if I didn't ask you to define the word cromulent. I have looked it up on the dictionary app, and it's acceptable, satisfactory. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's what I was going for. But I think it might actually be better than that. But my point is that yes, like it's some of these guys that just weren't real sexy that they brought in and are sticking in the middle of their lineup, and it's like they're very much satisfactory and might be better than that. Put it that way.
I love it. I was just covering for Joe. He didn't know what cromulent meant.
I don't know if it's a real word. I think maybe it was like made up by Futurama or something. That's where I always heard it. But
the definition says he's a perfectly cromulent quarterback. So there you go. Used it in a sentence. Well done. Oh, boys, well done this week. Kendall, I got to give you props. Like, I feel gassed. I feel mentally gassed. You look like you've been taking B12 shots or something. What the heck?
Fresh as a daisy, as John McEnroe says.
Yeah.
It was that trip to Buc-ee's last night that rejuvenated me.
It does for all of us.
Buc-ee's is selling what do they call them? Greenies.
That would
Beaners.
suck my soul dry if I tried to stop at a Buc-ee's. I'm not going to wait in traffic to get gas. I'm not going to battle crowds of plague-ridden. Never mind. I'm done.
just to get to the Fitzy. That's we'll have to continue that conversation because they do have the world's most
I am
famous
a big jerky fan.
beef jerky bar. So like,
but I'm not a fan of lines and madness. No, thank you.
I like I'm a big brisket guy. That when they yell out like "hot fresh brisket on the board," that's my favorite.
Do they really yell that?
Experience. They do. I have a fact check, by the way. The word cromulent was first used on The Simpsons, so it is a relatively new word in the lexicon. Yeah, I
was in the right, and that's a Matt.
You were in the neighborhood.
Matt Groening vehicle, also.
Right church, different pew.
That's right. Thank you.
Yes, love it, gentlemen. Well done. Let's cap it there. Let's be disciplined. Let's make good swing decisions and wrap it.
This was a perfectly cromulent podcast. Coach.
Yes, satisfactory to say the least. Now is the perfect time to get your subscription to D1Baseball.com, SEC Extra. Type in 24 season at checkout. Type in season 24. Just type stuff in there until you get a discount. Type in cromulent, whatever. Cromulent quarterback, whatever you want. But I think 24 season will get you 24% off. If not, call Kendall at his home number and you guys can talk through it.
Please do.
Yes, please do. Call Kendall's landline. And that's it. Exciting. Week 1 is in the books. We have lived to tell about it. We are excited for week 2. We will do our Thursday night preview pod this week. We'll get that kicked off. And that is it. Everybody have a great week, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.